Everybody. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. So glad you could join us today. As you arrive and settle in, we'd like you to share in the chat where you're joining us from. And also, if you could put in the chat a word you associate with networking, that would be really helpful. So my name is Miriam Diamond. I'm the program director here at the Encore Boston Network. Our goal is to help people over age 50 make a difference through work, service, and social action. Someone's having trouble hearing? Can people hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So you can learn more about our network, the Encore Boston Network, on our website, encorebostonnetwork.org. That's how you got in here in the first place, by signing up there. We have a lot of other events coming up. We have a monthly newsletter. You can join us. And what I love to tell everybody is it's free. And how many things in life can we say that about these days? So this event is being recorded. We'll send you a follow-up email with the link to the recording so you can see things again. If you didn't catch something, if you want to watch it again, if something distracted you in the middle and what was that? If you know people you want to share it with, feel free to view it again. You can also have the resources that we're going to share with you, and that will be in the follow-up email. So again, I'm encouraging you to please put in the chat where you're joining us from, and also what do you associate with networking, a word that comes to mind when we see networking. And throughout the program, please continue to add your comments, reactions, thoughts, questions in the chat. We'll keep the chat open. If you have a question, please write question beforehand so we'll catch it. We also invite you to turn on closed captioning if you find that useful. And again, anything you want to tell us about what you associate with networking, what word does that bring to mind for you? So today's program is Set Aside Your Resume and Lean into LinkedIn. Wouldn't you like to discover the best way to present your experience to employers, tell your story in the three-dimensional way, attract recruiters who use LinkedIn to fill positions, and convey to employers that you understand the modern world of work? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to help you leverage LinkedIn to tell your story, to maximize the top 7 aspects of your LinkedIn profile, to take advantage of the best features of LinkedIn, and develop active job search strategies so that you can use LinkedIn like a pro. I want to thank the 50+ job seekers of Massachusetts for co-sponsoring today's program. And our expert today is Leanne Rodd, who's the Director of Talent for Flex Professionals. Leanne leads recruiting and programming for Flex Professionals in the Boston area. She has years of experience in staffing and in publishing industries. She specializes in training and development, client relationships, sales, and marketing. Leanne is also a board-certified professional and career coach, and I will now turn things over to Leanne. Welcome.
Thank you, Miriam, and it's great to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. This is one of my favorite topics and something that I just love to share information about, because as LinkedIn has grown up, it has really become such a robust platform to do so much on. And so I want to dive right in. Today, we asked you to put into the chat, what do you associate networking with? I saw collaboration, communication, working, connecting, opportunity, and all those great terms. And I want to do a shout out to Mitch for putting out that fear. I think there is an element of fear to networking, whether it's walking into a big room or doing it one-on-one, especially with people that we don't know. And so throughout today, hopefully we'll dispel some of that, because I think we all do have a little bit of fear of that rejection, the no that we think we might get, and just go over some tips on how to approach it, how to practice it, maybe how to distance from the no's. And so really today, in leaning into LinkedIn, this is the step away from resume. The resume definitely has a place in your job search, as I'm sure you know. And so depending on your application strategy, it's going to come in at some point. Some people do get a job without ever, showing somebody their resume. But at some point, when people are dotting the I's, crossing the T's, they're going to want to have a resume on file. but maybe not. And so with almost 900 million users worldwide, LinkedIn has definitely become, it has grown into a professional networking platform for sure. But it's also a place where people do marketing, as I'm sure you know. You can do research. It is a communication tool. And while you might not use every feature in LinkedIn that we're going to talk about today or that we don't talk about, during an active job search, the way that you use it really matters, and not using it matters. And so we're gonna dive into that. So today we're going to focus on how to leverage LinkedIn to tell your career story through, obvious ways, content ways in your profile optimization and other areas of content, and also how to harness the power of the number of connected users on this platform. And when I'm talking about users, I'm talking about individuals as well as companies, nonprofits, organizations whose companies and organizations have a presence on LinkedIn. It's a networking tool for sure. So you can gather information for your job search. You can do company research, networking opportunities, absolutely. Interview prep, both formally through prompts from LinkedIn as well as doing research. But it's also a way to tell your story, not only through the words, but the actions that you're taking on LinkedIn. And it does this in a much different way than a resume can. And so we're going to talk about that, whether you're looking for a job today or in the future. Before we dive in, I just wanted to share a little bit about Flex Professionals so you have some context about why we even talk about LinkedIn. We are a niche staffing resource founded about 13 years ago by three moms who at the time had left the paid workforce, were wanting to come back in. And believe it or not, in 2008, flexibility wasn't a big thing. We know a lot about flexibility now, but in 2008, it was not present at all. And so they knew lots of people like themselves, moms and dads, people providing elder care, pre-retiree phase career professionals who, given an ounce of flexibility, could really make meaningful contributions at work. And also knew lots of small business owners who were looking for ways to grow affordably. Maybe they didn't need a full-time CFO, but having somebody 15 hours a week made a lot of sense. So they founded Flex Professionals, and really our mission is around helping people stay in the workforce through all of your career phases, whether that means full-time, part-time, project work, confidently returning to work after a career break, or successfully transitioning to a new field. And so I think we're talking about a couple of those areas today. We've worked literally with thousands of employers in the DC and Boston metro area, and also now tens of thousands of job seekers for various aspects of flexibility. And so what we want to do is really share information out from conversations and feedback that we've gotten from both sides of the desk. And a lot of that has changed in the last couple of years, and the things that we're going to talk about today are, ways that you can really positively move your job search forward. I'm going to give some ways to connect with us at the end, but we do have wanted to throw out that we have a monthly Friday meetup. The next one is the first Friday of December. To learn more about how we work, if you haven't worked with a staffing firm before, it's a great way to gather that piece of information no matter who you work with. We do networking, Q&A, etc. We're a no-fee service for job seekers. We all of our revenue comes from companies when they hire someone. So we sometimes get grouped with Flex Jobs. We are a different company, but we are a no-fee organization. So please come check us out. Okay, we're gonna jump right in. And before we do that, I wanted to just use the chat area again to ask a question of how often are you on LinkedIn? If you are in an active job search or not, and let's talk about it in terms of the number of times per week. So if you are willing to share that, that would be great. So the first question is really why to invest time on LinkedIn. We've talked a little bit about networking already, and really it's a key tool when you're networking now to connect with people who you've met recently, or maybe 5-10 years ago, but you haven't necessarily stayed in touch with. Great, thank you for entering. Everyday sigh. Okay, so it's a little bit of a chore. I'm looking at the chat now. Daily during the week, 7 days a week, 5 to 6 times daily, once a week. So on LinkedIn every day. A lot of people are on it at least, sounds like 3 to 5 times a week on daily. Lots of dailies, great. Because we're going to be talking about really making LinkedIn a habit and being on it even if it's just 10 minutes a day, but, you know, building it into your job search if you haven't already. So from a networking perspective, it's definitely a key tool. In many cases, it's replaced the conventional business card for connecting with people online or during networking. And you probably have heard this stat, right? That 80% of jobs are found through networking. And that is even higher for people who are in some phase of career transition, right? Where your resume or your LinkedIn profile may not exactly line you up with the job that you're pursuing. So that 80% plus number includes a combined approach of applying online while leveraging any connections that you have. It includes unadvertised roles that people find through networking conversations. This happens a lot with project work, people who are working, you know, in a consulting capacity, for example, but it also happens with jobs that are, you know, full-time or part-time, but ongoing and not consulting. It includes referrals. But what it does not include are online job board applications without any other touches, right? And so if I know in my work, when I ask people, how are you looking for a job and what are you doing? There's networking, but there's also a lot of applying without the surrounding pieces. It's the most popular way that people apply for jobs, right? You're competing though, if you think about this, if 20% of the jobs are strictly gotten through those online applications and job boards without any other touches around them, and most people are doing that, you're competing with a really big pool for a small slice of the jobs. And so networking comes in to most job searches. The other reason, second reason to invest time in LinkedIn is that recruiters, whether they're at an agency like ours or whether they're internal to a company, are using LinkedIn, and they're using it in two ways. So they're using it to find people. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you a few things on LinkedIn. And one of the things I'm going to show you is our recruiting search screen. So you have some kind of behind the curtain view of what recruiters are seeing and the way that they're looking for candidates. So that's one way. The other way is just in general social media searches. When people are coming in and interviewing for a job, and maybe after that first or second phase interview, when they're getting toward the hiring stage, there's background checks that happen. And one of those typically is a social media check. Are you on LinkedIn and are you not on LinkedIn? You know, so whether you're on it or not can have a little bit of a reflection on technical currency, like it or not. So if you have an account and it's not fully populated yet, I would encourage you to do that. One of the links that I'm going to share, if you're looking for basic LinkedIn information, is a link to a recording that we have on our website on kind of the basics of LinkedIn, since we're a little deeper today. But really being on it and having a populated profile shows that you are technically current. You may be technically current even if you don't have it, but if someone doesn't know you, it's an easy way to kind of get a glimpse. Also, you know, the investment on LinkedIn is around personal brand. You know, basic level of LinkedIn is as a networking tool, but there are nuances that you can use to really extend your personal brand. And we're going to be talking a lot about that today, because one of the key ways that LinkedIn differs from a resume is that it's forward looking, right? If you've spent time developing your profile, you're probably writing it in first person language. And that's not something that we do on a resume. We can be a little creative on our profile, not creative like in fabricating the truth, but creative in how we communicate information and tell our story. We can tell it as a story, right? So it's part of our personal brand. It's forward looking. It's very, you know, it can morph just a little bit as you change what you're looking for. So it's part of your personal brand. And finally, just the sheer number of users. I mentioned this, you know, almost 900 billion users worldwide and 57 million organizations. So there's a good chance that companies or nonprofits that you're targeting for your next role are going to be on LinkedIn, and they're going to be interacting there, and they may be looking at how you interact as well. So let's jump into optimizing your profile. This is, again, you know, this could be the entire webinar, so I'm going to go through some of this really quickly. If, you know, I can put a link in the chat. I'll wait until the end, sorry. I don't want to bounce back and forth. But just looking at the sections with the most impact, I said, you know, it really is divided between the content of your LinkedIn profile and then how you use it. So looking at content first, your headline is one of the most, headline and job titles are two of the most, I'll call them elevated search fields when people are looking for new hires on LinkedIn. So your headline is a search field, but it's also an area where it's like your quick elevator pitch. It has increased in length recently to over 200 characters, so you can really utilize your headline section. And when we get into showing a LinkedIn profile, this is the area right underneath your picture. It might say something like recruiting professional, career coach. I think I'm pulling from what's on my own, and yours will have what you're pursuing. But it's that first place where you can really put the information out there about what you're pursuing, right? And so it may be broader than we've done in the past. It may be very targeted, but it's a little bit like a mini elevator pitch. The about section is your, another area of content where we've talked about it can be in the third person. I think that it reads a little bit more awkwardly than in first person, but it's really up to you. And it's your opportunity to tell a story and show a little bit of personality, right? You're looking for connections when you're looking for, when you're networking, when you're doing informational interviews, when you're getting ready for an interview and applying for jobs. And so the more kind of dots you can connect with somebody who's in a hiring position, the more they can start to picture you doing a job and filling a need that they have, right? And so that about section, your profile section, gives you a chance to tell a story, show a little bit of personality. You don't want to be too quirky, but be a little bit creative. And if you're kind of stuck on this, and a lot of people say, well, do you have any examples? Can you show me some good about sections? I'm like, there are so many good about sections. What I usually tell people to do is go out on LinkedIn, look at your network that you're connected with, just start to read people's profile sections and take, inspiration from that. You might even reach out to somebody that you're connected with and say, hey, we're in the same industry. I loved how you phrased this. Do you mind if I borrow it for my own profile? But you might just take some inspiration. It is not a place to put your resume. You're going to do that in your experience section, but it is a place where you can start to elevate the things that you know are important in a search and for people looking for professionals like you with a specific skill set. And it might even include job titles. And so we'll talk about that too. And you really want to make sure that when you're working on your profile section, that you're paying attention to what happens in about the first 1 to 2 sentences. You have a certain amount of characters that are what I would call above the fold. So someone can read it when they go to your profile without having to click read more. And so you really want to start out your profile section with something that might be attention grabbing. It's going to compel somebody to want to read more and click on that. And then your skills and endorsements. And all of these, all of these content areas can have impact because it's your ability to put yourself forward in the job that you're pursuing. When we talk about resumes, and we've got webinars at Flex Professionals about resumes, one of the questions that comes up often is, should I have X on my resume? Should I list this job? Should I list this skill? Should I list this in my profile statement? And I think that same thing applies to LinkedIn, where the answer is, it really depends on what you're pursuing. If it will help elevate you and show your value in the job that you're pursuing, it definitely belongs on your resume, probably belongs on LinkedIn as well. So think about those skills and maybe endorsements. Maybe you want to think about getting endorsements in a slightly different way than you've gotten in the past, especially in career transition, to highlight the things that are transferable. But the skills you can really pick. You can go in and you can pick the skills that you want to show on your LinkedIn profile, and you can pick the ones that are pinned to the top. I think there used to be 3 that were pinned. It's probably still the same. So really paying attention to the sections of your LinkedIn profile that are going to help elevate you for the job that you want to pursue. And then in terms of how you use it, connections, networking is absolutely important. You're going to use it to have conversations, right? That is how you're going to move your job search forward and gain information informationally from people working in a field that you're thinking about. Maybe you're going to use it to network your way into a company that you're interested in. But there's also an engagement aspect, and we're going to spend our off-screen time talking about that engagement. LinkedIn, like every social media platform, has algorithms. And so even when you're connected to someone, I'm connected to Doug, and I think I'm connected to Miriam and Kendra today, I don't see everything that they post. And so there's an algorithm that LinkedIn uses to place things in front of me that they think I'm interested in using. And the more engaged I am in certain areas, the more I'm going to see that's related. Okay, so let's ask another question. How many people think that their LinkedIn profile right now is targeted to the job that they're seeking as opposed to the job that they may have had in the past, if that's different? I'm going to let you kind of fill that into the chat if you have any insights on that. And then we're going to jump into using LinkedIn to target the job that you want next, right? So we've talked a lot about your about section being in the first person. This is a place where you can really be clear on what you want. If you're in career transition, it's a really nice place to say succinctly that you're transitioning from A to B, right? Sometimes I see profiles, and this may or may not be yours, but sometimes I see profiles that almost sound like they're starting with an apology. And what you really want to do is come out of the gate with your strengths in your profile section. It's kind of like the profile at the top of your resume. So to us, if we're in career transition, or if we've had a career break and we're coming back into the paid workforce after, a couple of years, then that is first and foremost on our mind. That is like, I've been out of work for 2 years, or I've been off the paid, out of the paid workforce for a couple of years. I feel like I'm a little bit behind. That might come through. So rather than apologizing, right, you're just going to start off with a bang. You're going to talk about your strengths. Tell a story without being cryptic, but it's a great place for keywords. So if in your research, you've been looking at job descriptions, you've been looking at, maybe you've had some interviews and you know what those key skills are and how they're phrased, paying attention to that and weaving those into your profile as well as into your experience section can really pay off. You definitely want to include your hard skills. If you're in a technical area, and honestly, what job doesn't have technical aspects to it now? But if you are in an area where there are some hard skills that are important to have, you're going to want to list those in your profile. That can be a running list, it can be a bullet list. It doesn't really matter on the format, but you do want to make sure it's there because it's a search field. So if somebody's looking for you, or if they just are, even if you're recommended, say, hey, take a look at my friend Joe's profile. I think he might be the right fit for your marketing position. If I go and I look at his profile and I'm not quite sure what I'm reading, or I don't see the things that I'm looking for in terms of marketing execution or whatever I'm looking for, that's not going to help me make the connection and draw connect the dots for that person in the job. So you want to include your hard skills. If you're actively searching and you're not currently employed, right, you are, sharing with your network that you're looking for a new job, then I would even go a step further and maybe include some of the sample job titles that you're looking for. This can be really helpful if you're looking for a job title that's different from what you've had in the past. That headline and your past job titles are key search areas for recruiters. If it's different, or if it's called something different now. One example that I have from my career is my background's in training and development. Well, nobody calls it that anymore. It's learning and development. So positions, even if I had that in my title, I'm going to want to include learning and development in my profile statement to make sure that I come up with current language. You want to elevate your transferable skills. You do that in your headline for sure, your about statement. But you're also going to do that is through your activity. So, and this is an example, and we'll look at the LinkedIn profile to see how this pans out. But if I'm a person who's been in finance, and in my last job, I had maybe a controller role, so that I was doing a little bit of HR, and I really am interested in transitioning into human resource field and bringing my finance skills with me. If the things that I'm doing, if I haven't changed my headline and about, that's one thing. But if the activity that I am, I'm sharing posts, I'm commenting on other posts, if that's all related to the finance field, I may not be coming across in my activity as someone who's really pivoting to human resource. So it's a way to elevate your transferable skills without actually saying anything. You're going to elevate it through your activity and skills and endorsements, as we talked about a little bit earlier. But really the bottom line is, does your LinkedIn profile highlight the strengths and skills that are needed for the job that you want? We know ourselves, we know what might seem obvious to us, but it may not come across to the hiring team. So if you can put yourself on the other side of the desk and think about, What is that recruiter or HR talent manager looking for? What is the hiring team looking for? How do I let them know that that's what I have and that I can be of value? That can be helpful. The other place that you can start to elevate yourself in career transition is by associations, right? And so if you are moving from, and I'll use finance again, a finance job in the renewable energy space to a finance position in nonprofits, you're going to want to start to take a look at, the skills are very similar, if not the same, but you're going to want to start to take a look at the groups who are talking about finance in the nonprofit environment. Industry associations, maybe there's some thought leaders that you want to be following. It's not only going to show on your profile that you're part of those groups, but you're going to start to see some of the chat that's in those groups. Industry associations are going to post content. They're going to post events and other things so that you start to interact with that, as well as with thought leaders. And so that's another way of actually doing some soft networking. One note that I do want to just say before we jump off the slide is about how your LinkedIn profile relates to your resume, because as you start to, monkey with it and you're changing this and you're changing that and you're changing the way you say things, you may start to feel like there's a disconnect between your LinkedIn profile and your resume. It's okay for them to be a little bit different. Obviously there are different types of communication methods for a lot of the same information, but they're different. You want to make sure they match on a basic level, right? You want to make sure that your chronology of the jobs that you've had are pretty much the same, that you're not significantly changing. If you had primary responsibility of one thing in your last job, that you don't kind of make it seem like your primary responsibility was something else. But you're going kind of for that know, like, and trust factor in your job search. So significantly different information is going to probably shoot up a red flag, but they are going to be different. Just wanted to throw that out. So using LinkedIn for effective job search strategy, and these next two slides, I'm going to go through them a little quickly because I really want to get over to showing some things on the LinkedIn platform. I've divided them into kind of outbound and inbound strategy. So using it effectively for both of those. We've talked a lot about networking. This can all be related to specific roles, but you really are positioning yourself from an outbound standpoint, right? Through networking, maybe for some jobs that are listed, maybe for some that are not listed yet. So the networking that you're doing might be while you're simultaneously applying for jobs. So we're going to talk about how to do that kind of research and connection. And if you haven't done a lot of either cold or warm messaging, asking for meetings or calls with people that you don't know well or don't know at all can feel a little bit awkward and maybe even intimidating, right? Because we think, oh, well, what if they don't say yes? And so it's one of those things that, like other types of networking in person, gets a little bit easier the more that you do it. And to do it well, you're going to practice it and you're going to do it a little bit more over time, but to do it well, just invite you to kind of treat it like you would other aspects of your job search, where maybe you're setting goals for the numbers of, those outbound requests that you're making, hopefully having meetings one-on-one online, in person possibly, and then tracking it. So you can feel good about the work that you've done, but, you're also seeing what you've done over a period of time, and maybe even going back when you do land a job to be able to say, thank you to the 5 people that helped you get there. Just remembering though, the networking at this point is not a job interview, it's a conversation. And so that outbound ask for time is really about having a conversation. Sometimes that makes it easier to make the ask. You're going to plan for that conversation, I hope, and keep to the time that you've asked for, but really prepping what you want to ask, maybe what briefly you want to share about what direction you're moving in, and then what you can give to that person. So that the networking piece. But as we jump over to LinkedIn, in one more slide, we're going to start to look at how we use it to research target companies, engaging with brands, right? Tracking their career pages, but also following and having that engagement. Other organizations in the same industry that we might want to be paying attention to, and then having an eye toward other social media platforms. All right. And then the inbound piece is really how you are going to be found on LinkedIn. This is going to be the way that recruiters find you, but it may also be the way that other people in your network find you, right? So you want to be findable. Having really clear and researched keywords is one way to do this. And we've talked about, incorporating those into your profile, hopefully into the descriptions of past experience that you've had. You want to make sure that you are listing, just like on your resume, some of the outcomes from past jobs that you've had, those hard skills and technology, and then being relatable, right? Know, like, and trust. You want that crafted about message that enables you to connect to a person. And there's kind of a fine art between sharing the facts and sharing a little bit of personality, and everybody's going to be different. For some people, that's really easy. They're very out and open with sharing a lot about themselves. For other people, it's really difficult. And so you kind of have to find the level of sharing that is comfortable for you, but allows someone to connect with you, because we're all humans. And so we're looking for that human connection. And then targeted value statement in your about section and your experience. If you've done your research on the kinds of industries, companies, jobs that you're targeting, hopefully you've started to come away from those job descriptions and messaging with some really key statements about what people are looking for in that position. And being able to weave those in a natural way into those sections. And then the credibility, the trusting piece is, having some activity on LinkedIn is great. Not only helps with the algorithm, but when someone's looking at your profile, they can see what kinds of things you're commenting on or posting. And then liking, commenting, and sharing, as long as it's on brand, right? So LinkedIn is a professional platform. It's unlike, Facebook and Instagram and other social media sites where you might share on a more personal level. I will say that during the last couple of years, there's been quite a lot of crossover between sharing, personal information on LinkedIn. And again, that's kind of a personal choice about how much people are sharing personally, but it does kind of bring in that human factor too. So that's something that you might want to think about where you are. All right, so I'm going to take a pause because I do want to jump over to a LinkedIn screen just to show a few things. And I'm just going to do a check-in with Miriam. Is there anything that we want to answer or address before we do that?
Well, we did have one question in the chat about the Open to Work banner. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Do you mind if I defer that over to showing on the screen? Okay. All right. It might be a little bit easier to show. LinkedIn is one of those things where you can talk a lot about it and then you just have to go show it, right?
Great.
Okay. So we are over on LinkedIn now. Can everybody see this? Okay. So hopefully let's start with the Open to Work, because I want to make sure we answer that question. Because I want to do the outbound, remember the outbound and the inbound things. This is what I would call an inbound function, right? So it's turning on the ways that you can be findable and making it clear to people who are looking at your profile what it is that you're looking for. Let me just move some things around here so I can get to all the things I want to click on. Okay. So as you may have noticed, at the top of your LinkedIn banner is a jobs or a little briefcase button. And so we're going to start there. We're going to go to jobs and we're going to do a couple of things here. Let's start with the Open to Work banner, or turning on Open to Work in the background. So you can do this from your profile as well. If I went to my profile, I could get there, but since we're going to be talking about jobs, I'm going to do it from here. On the jobs tab, it's over on the right-hand side. It's called Open to Work, showing recruiters you're open to new opportunities. And if you can see this little teeny tiny green circle around my picture, this is giving me a preview of what that Open to Work banner is going to show when I turn the banner on. So let's get started, because there's two ways you can turn this on. You can have that, whoops, here, let's not do that. Bear with me here. Oh, it's going to show me ways to do this. Okay, I'm going to backtrack. I'm going to go through my profile to show you this and then come back to the jobs tab. LinkedIn makes a lot of changes all the time. And so if you can't find it, don't feel badly, because sometimes I can't find it either. But if you're starting from your profile, it's going to be just below your top section here where it says Open to. And so when you click on Open to, Yeah, I have two choices here, finding a new job and providing services. So we're going to click on finding a new job. And then I'm going to have a bunch of different options. So I'm going to start down at the bottom of who can see that I'm open, because these two choices on open to work give me that little open to work banner. So if I want to broadcast to my network, I'm going to turn that on. It's telling me that it's going to replace my hiring frame. So you can also turn this on in the background. So this is a choice that is open to recruiters only. And if you choose this background, it's not necessarily broadcasting to your entire network with a banner. Even if you're not currently employed, some people just don't want to do that. But you can turn it on in the background so that when recruiters are looking for people, they can use that as a search criteria. So it's not going to show on my banner, but it's going to show on the back of my profile. The other things that I can do when I turn on the open to work is show where I'm looking. So if I'm in the process of relocating to, Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, I'm, retiring, or I'm relocating, I can put job locations that I'm open to in those two areas. I can choose my timeline. I can look at the kinds of jobs that I'm open to, full-time, contract, part-time, internship, etc. This used to have some titles. Oh, it does have titles. You can also add some job titles that you're looking for. You can go ahead and add it here. I'm also going to show you on the job side where to look for titles and track. But if you want to put titles here, if you're a marketing manager or marketing specialist, as you start to type these into LinkedIn, you're going to get a drop down to things that LinkedIn thinks you want to choose. These are really important to pay attention to, because remember, LinkedIn is a gigantic platform that works on algorithms. These are common terms that they're coming up with. It doesn't mean you have to put these in, but if you're thinking, sometimes in a job, we have a really long title, especially in higher ed. I've seen some titles in higher ed that I have to stop and think, like, what exactly does that mean? You might want to net it down to what it really means. And you might say, okay, it's a marketing manager, but it's also marketing department specialist, staff positions, marketing team, etc. So you can start to put in your job titles in here, and that all reflects on the back of LinkedIn. So going back to jobs, so you've got your banner turned on, or you've got your open to work on in the background. You can start a search in here. So you want to start with a position that you're looking for. Let's say I'm a marketing manager, and this is what the jobs that I'm looking for. So again, I'm paying attention to what those drop-down terms are. And I don't have to put in my location. It's going to pull up all the jobs across. So I've got 100,000 job results, but I'm really committed to staying in Boston. Oops. And then you can start to see that number come down. So now I've got about 10,000. So I still want to start to net that down so I can start to look at, well, what experience level am I looking for? Am I mid-senior level, director, associate? So I'm going to put in a mid-level. I've still got 5,000 results. That's still quite a lot. So maybe I want to look at things that are only remote. And so let's turn on remote positions. Well, that still gives me quite a lot of jobs to look for. But you can start to filter down. If you're looking only for specific companies, job types, you can say, well, actually, I'm looking for only contract roles. I'm looking for remote contract roles. Now I've got that nicely netted down to 255 jobs. I might look through here. I might not find anything that I'm really that interested in. But one thing that you can do in the job section, once you've got your filters set, is you can go in and you can set an alert, this button at the top. Once you turn it on, it's going to start to send you probably daily or a couple times a week alerts when a new job is posted that meets the criteria that you've set. This is really helpful if you have a target list of, say, 10 to 20 companies or organizations that you're hoping to work at. You can set an alert so that when a blank job, a marketing job, a sales, accounting job is opened at that specific company, that you get an alert. And think about how powerful that can be just in terms of response time. So if you're an early applicant and maybe you've got a little bit of a networking arm working as well, that can go a long way toward landing that job. So that's the job area. But I want to go back to connections, because remember, we've talked about LinkedIn a lot as a place to connect. So I'm going to show an example, and this is not not real for me, but I just want to show how you might do that kind of research. So I'm going to say that I have been looking for roles in Boston that in sales that are with kind of industry disruptors. And one of the companies that I'm targeting is CarGurus. If you've heard of CarGurus, it's, you know, ordering your car, ordering or selling your car online. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to take a look at the company, because this is intel gathering, right? Maybe I don't know that it's going to be on my list yet. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to view the page of the company. There's a lot we can see here. Remember, this is a gigantic information platform. So if you're doing information gathering, whether it's for deciding whether a company's on your list, doing some connecting into the company, interviewing at the company, this offers you things that you can't get on the company website. And I want to show you a couple things. So you're going to start to get a flavor for how does the company describe itself, right? So technology, information, and internet. They never even say car in their, you know, their top statement, but it's in there. Obviously, it's what they do. So you can start to read the overview. You can pop over to the website if you want to and see how many employees they have, over 1,000, headquartered in Cambridge. You can take a look at other locations, but you can also take a look at things like, well, what are they posting on LinkedIn? What kind of posts are they, you know, putting up here? Here's some awards that were recently won. You can take a look at some jobs, which you know, you can do from the jobs tab as well. But the thing that you can do here, this area I love on LinkedIn, because you can really start to gather intel on things like, what are the growing positions in the company? Have they hired fewer? Have they hired more? So on LinkedIn, it's showing 87 job openings, and I've got a few here. But if I click on see all jobs for this particular company, it's going to pull them up into the format that we just looked at. So now I see that I'm looking at CarGurus as my company. So it's a similar search experience as we just saw, but I can start to search in here by skill. So if I'm looking for sales, I can then see out of the 87, 34 in sales. That's pretty good. So that may be, you know, that may be something that's worth pursuing. Okay, but let's jump back over here, back to the company profile. I can start to also see, well, not every company has this, but companies that really want to forward their working culture, have some things out here about their brand, you know, what it's like to work at that company. So you can see a video, you might see some testimonials, you might see some posts that employees have shared about life in the, you know, a day in the life. And then there's the people tab. And this is one of the things that I want to dive into just a bit. Hopefully we're not coming up to time yet. But you can see there's that 1,000+ employees. You can see where they lived. You can see where they studied. If you're a UNH graduate and you can see that 24 people in the Boston area studied at UNH, you may have some alumni connections there if you don't have other ones. You can see, let's see, what people do. 346 people are technically in a sales function. That sounds like it's a pretty big part of what they, you know, what their employee base is. And then maybe a little bit about what they're skilled at. Some people you may know, possibly connect with. Let me go over to the insights. So we're going to come back to people, but I do want to show, this is an area where you can start to gather some intel. Okay, so again, 1,000 employees, but you can start to see where they've been and where they are now. So back in November 2020, 2 years ago, 867 to where they are now. So 24% growth over the last 2 years, just a 6% growth in the last 6 months. So that's one thing to pay attention to, right? You can see where their employees are distributed. We've looked at this a little bit, but if you're not in one of these job functions, you can go and look for it. Maybe I want to look for, you know, human resources. How many people at this company are in human resources and how is it growing? So 5% over 6 months, 1 year, 13%. So that's pretty good. What you want to pay attention to are those probably the red arrows that are pointing down. This obviously is a hiring company, but if you see some red arrows that are pointing down, that just means that they're not hiring as many people in that function. Again, you can see their new hires. You can see people who used to work at the company, which are also good networking connections, and then total job openings. Engineering is having a drop. So if I'm an engineer and I'm targeting this company, this may not be at the top of my list right now. Events and videos you can also see about the company, but I want to go back to the people. And so the way that we're going to do that, let me just type in CarGurus again, is we're going to pause before we go to the company page, right? So we've done a search. The first thing it's going to show me, I have a connection who works there. So I definitely want to make sure that if that's somebody that I know well, I'm connecting with. Without that, we can look at other people who either work there currently or have worked there in the past. So you see, when I click on people, I get 2,100 results. These are people who currently work there and who are what I'll call CarGuru alumni. So I can, immediately take a look and say, well, those people may be worth connecting with if they've recently left, so that they have connections. I can get some insights on experience. Sometimes people who have left a company are a little bit more willing to share their experience at the company after they've left. So I'm going to start to zoom in on the people. So I can take a look here and say, okay, well, let's take a look. Let's pretend I don't have any first connections. I want to look at who my second connections are, because that means we have somebody in common. So I've got 306 second connections. There's probably a good chance that some of these second connections, I'm going to be able to get an intro depending on who I know. So you want to take a look at the job titles of people, VP of Human Resources at CarGurus. If I'm interested in human resources, that would be a great connection to have. I see that this person is connected to a few people, and I can dig down and see who else, but I've already got a couple of people here who I know pretty well. And if they really know this person, I think they might be willing to give me a LinkedIn introduction. So I can start to see that. I can see where people are located. If I really want to just limit it to current company, I can say I really just want to see people who are currently working at the company. Show me those results, right? So 156. Remember, we're looking at second connections. And then I can filter it a little bit more. So if I want to get into that alumni, if I say, well, who at CarGurus went to UNH, who's my second connection and is currently working there, I can start to filter down a little bit more. I'm going to move my little Zoom banner here. Okay, so now I've got 7, but I may have some really great, and now I've got 2 warm lead-ins with these people. If I've got a common connection who knows me well and can do that introduction, plus we share an alumni association, there's a really good chance that these people are going to be willing to connect, even if I don't know them, and maybe be willing to have a conversation. I kind of skipped over this, but let's go back to CarGurus as a company. One of the things that you want to make sure you're doing is following the companies that you're interested in. So if you've got your top 10 to 20 list, you want to make sure that you're following the page. And this is the follow button. You can click it here or on the company page. What this does, let's say you network and you're interviewing and you're meeting with HR and they go to look at your LinkedIn profile and they say, well, Leanne doesn't even follow us on LinkedIn. Could she really be that interested in working here? So you want to make sure, you never know how someone's going to read that. So you want to make sure that you're following. The other thing that you can do here when you're searching for this company is you can take a look at other companies in the industry. So I really want to work here, but I see over on the right-hand side that their competitor and people also viewed Carvana, TrueCar, Vroom, Cars.com. I may also want to follow their competitors so that those types of pieces of information start to appear in my LinkedIn feed, right? And so I can start to engage with those posts. I might find a new thought leader who I want to follow so that if I do, eventually connect with this company and someone's looking at my profile, that activity is in alignment with my wanting to work at the company. Okay. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing okay. Can I show a few more things?
We have a lot of questions, so maybe something really quick if you want to show, that'd be great.
Okay. Let me see. I had some samples up here. Let me just pick one. We talked a lot about engagement, and I'm just going to talk about the 3 main ways of engagement, because I get questions about this too. It's like, well, how do I comment? How do I share in a way that makes sense? So if you are commenting on somebody else's post, and again, this is all related to algorithm, right? So this is a post that was put up this morning by someone who I'm connected with. I've read the article. I want to comment on it. It's going to start to have me percolate up into certain algorithms, but it's also going to show this activity on my LinkedIn profile. So I just wanted to show an example. I'm tagging the original author. I'm, giving some insights. This is kind of a personal article. So it's a poignant article about burnout, and so I wanted to comment to show her that I had read it, that I appreciate her sharing that information, and then I'm going to post it there. You can also share it to your broader network. This is a comment on the feed itself, but you can also share to your broader network. So looking at another post that I might want to share out to, hold on. Okay, just for the sake of time, let me go back here. I can also share this out to my broader network, and that's through reposting, right? So that's going to go out to my LinkedIn network, but I'm still going to do the same kind of tagging for the original poster. If they're sharing an article that I really thought was insightful, I might even tag themuse.com in my post just to kind of further the message. And again, it's playing into that algorithm. So that's the sharing aspect. The other thing I just wanted to shout out is that the other question that we get a lot is on how to make those connections. And maybe that's part of the Q&A that we can do. So why don't I switch back over to the slideshow and move us into Q&A. Before I do that, I wanted to just throw out one event that we have coming up next week on Wednesday at noon. This is one that Encore Network and AARP have hosted in Boston, or virtually in Boston recently. It's a conversation with Carrie Hannon about her book, In Control at 50 Plus. It's a free event next Wednesday. There's a sign-up link here, and I can include that in the follow-up as well, Miriam. But Carrie's a fantastic author and speaker. If you didn't have a chance to see her live through the event that Encore Network hosted, please feel free to drop in next week.
So thank you, Leanne.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wonderful information. We have a lot of questions. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we'll do our best. One important question was, when you find a connection, what do you talk about when you network with them? What do you say to them?
Good question, right? Especially if we're not used to talking to people that we don't know. So I would frame the conversation and really kind of write some things out to help you frame it. One of the best places to start is just to ask somebody about their career path, maybe about changes in the industry. Let's say you have an industry connection and you've been on a, alternate career path for the last 5 years, you're transitioning back. What changes have there been? Tell me about your own career story. People love to tell their stories, right? And so that's an easy way to start asking about them. You do want to make sure you weave in a little bit about yourself, because the purpose of this is to further networking. So either having them think about you in terms of, oh, you are returning to this particular job function. We've been in the same industry. I get that about you. I kind of know what you're looking for, because that may prompt them to offer other connections. Like, I don't think I have anything, know of any openings here, but my good friend Miriam works at a different company, and I think you should connect with her. And so you're going to offer that out. They're probably going to offer that out to you if you share a little bit about what you're looking for. You don't want to hand them your resume, right? It's a conversation. But the other thing that you can work into that conversation is how you can help them. That's always a nice way to wrap up and say, what resources can I share? Who can I connect you with? Connecting on LinkedIn, seeing who they're connected with is another great way to prepare.
Great. Well, that's really helpful. Someone observed this, and I've noticed it also. Sometimes there's not the option to connect with someone. And I don't know if you know anything about whether there's been a change at LinkedIn or something like that. What do you recommend?
So I've seen that. Sometimes there truly isn't an option. If I've seen this mostly in say a CEO profile, right? So they probably get a lot of connection requests, and they may only have the follow option, and then they've turned that on in their profile. You may not be able to connect with them. Sometimes though, it's just hidden. It's there and it's just hidden. It says follow, right? So you can follow somebody on LinkedIn. You can follow companies and you can follow people. But if you click the more button, or the little 3 buttons that comes up to the right of your options, sometimes there's a message that's it's one level down. You just kind of have to know where to find it.
And how about networking with companies that don't have any job openings right now, but it's something that you're interested in? What do you recommend about that?
I think networking is kind of this career-long, lifelong activity. And so I think, focusing some of your networking conversations with people who work at the company, for sure, maybe in the industry, so that you can kind of keep that conversation going for the future when there are openings, being kind of clear about what you're looking for. Honestly, people get hired when there's not job openings all the time, right? And so it's opportunistic hiring. It's, smart companies. We've done it in our company where we meet someone and we say, we don't have a job opening for what they're looking for, but what do you think about pitching, this other thing that we need to have done? Or we don't have any openings, but we're going to keep them on our list so that when we do, there's somebody who they get what we do. They seem like they're, they've got great experience that we could use. We're going to maybe go to them first. I like that for small companies. We're a small company, so it's kind of easier to keep track of that group of people. But I would say that, the networking aspect and really, staying top of mind.
Can you say something about the jobs that are posted by a company on LinkedIn versus on their website? Is it the same thing? Are there going to be differences? Does it make sense to use both? What do you recommend?
I definitely think it makes sense to pay attention to both. I think that there's some intel you can gather on LinkedIn that you don't get from the website, like how many people have applied, right? When did the job open? Is it a promoted job? Because sometimes you can see the little promoted tag on a company job on LinkedIn that says, this might be something that they have a hard time hiring for, right? If they're promoting it, they're paying for it to come up on LinkedIn searches. There will be differences between the jobs that companies post on LinkedIn. I know for us, we don't post everything on LinkedIn. We have a lot more on our website because that's not an area where we make a huge financial investment to post. So it can cost money for companies. If they don't have that budget, they won't post all their jobs on LinkedIn. So I would definitely take a look at both. It really varies by company.
Now, there's an option on LinkedIn to see who has searched your profile or viewed your profile recently.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to maximize or use that in the job search?
Sure. So there are a lot of settings in that area. People have played with that. You can turn off other people's ability to see you. And in doing that, you're going to limit your ability to see people who view yours. There's different abilities to see, different historical looks, depending on what level of LinkedIn you have. If you have the free version, you can only go back, however many, 5 people or a few days. But with a premium version, it lets you go back a little bit further. What I would say is, if you notice that someone who's in a talent acquisition job capacity has looked at your profile, it's always worth reaching out, right? So, and reaching out in a gentle way that says, I'll use Miriam again, and I'll say, connecting with Miriam, I'm going to send her a message and say, hi, Miriam, great to meet you on LinkedIn. I saw that, you were viewing my profile. I do happen to be in an active job search, even though, I'm in this position, this contract that ends in 3 months. If you're looking for, whatever my skill set, would love to connect with you. And so you can use it that way. People may or may not respond, but I don't think it hurts.
Can you talk a little bit about the premium membership of LinkedIn? Do you recommend it, or under what situations, under what circumstances?
So yeah, LinkedIn offers the premium membership. They've got one called Job Seeker, I think, or Job Search membership. That does give you it gives you a greater ability historically to see who's viewed your profile. That's one thing. It gives you a small amount of in-mails per month. So if you're not connected with somebody, an in-mail credit allows you to send them a message without actually being connected. So if I really can't find a connection to a person I want to connect with at a company, but I want to send them a message, I can use one of those credits. You don't have to have a credit for people who have premium memberships. So you may find that you don't need that. The one thing that I do like on the Job Seeker, if, even just for a short time, is when you apply for a job and you've seen it on LinkedIn and you don't have to apply on LinkedIn, you can apply however you want, but you can see how many people have applied on LinkedIn. And that might be good intel just for knowing, like, oh, 4 people have applied. I might be early in the process. And so that could be good or bad, right? Sometimes companies want to keep the application open for a set period of time, so you might have to wait longer, but sometimes not. Sometimes you might get, really quick in with, the talent team and then the hiring team.
How does someone pick the right job title to highlight in their search? Is it just going to a company and trying different things? What do you recommend?
To highlight in their search, you mean to look for in the jobs section of LinkedIn, or to include in their profile?
It says, is there a list of job titles to choose from for job preferences?
For job preferences. Well, what I would do is, when that auto populate started to happen when we were looking for jobs, I might pay attention to what those titles are, pick out a few that you like there. The other thing is that everybody's been looking at job descriptions from various companies online during a job search, paying attention to what those positions are called. I was using sales in my earlier example, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but almost nothing that came up said sales, right? It said account executive. It said, relationship strategist, or, something that is unique to that company's titling. I might want to start to, if I'm really targeting that company, if I really want to work at CarGurus, I might start to put that in my profile, titles that I'm open to: relationship specialist, account executive, whatever those are that are specific to that company.
Great. And we have a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we can't get to all of them, but another question that came through is, where can people get feedback on their LinkedIn profile? Do you have a place you recommend someone they turn to? Should it be through the networking? What do you recommend?
That is a great question. I have one. I just want to research it. There is a company called Profile Grader Pro. I haven't used them in a while. They're local to Boston though, and that it's a paid for service. I know people who have used it. That's one feedback area, or one feedback company that I know of. LinkedIn does a lot of that work for you if you let it. So as you start to look at jobs and you've got your profile where you think it needs to be for the job that you're pursuing, LinkedIn is going to tell you how well you match. So it's going to say, how many skills you have for this job. And if you see that you have 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, you may want to take a look at, well, what do I need? Is it something that I have that I'm not saying in the right way? Or is it something that I really don't have, and I might want to start thinking about upskilling in a particular area? So there's that.
Well, thank you so much. We could go on forever with these questions, but I really want to appreciate your all this information you gave us, Leanne. This is really so valuable, and I personally would like to see this video again, and we will send the link to everybody so you get to see it again and catch all the nuances and all the information, and pull up your own LinkedIn profile while Leanne's going through the steps. So thank you, Leanne. Thank you, 50 Plus Job Seekers of Massachusetts, for being our co-sponsors. Thank all of you for your participation. Kendra Mrozik for the technical support. And please all let us know, what is one action you will take based on what you heard today? What is something you might do differently, a step you're going to take on LinkedIn? We would love to hear that, as well as any feedback in general about this webinar. So we will send you the link with follow-up information. We will send you links to the slides, way to get access to the slides. We will give you some more information coming up in our follow-up email, so stay tuned. We also have some upcoming related workshops coming up, including new approaches to networking. So we got warmed up today on networking, and we're going to, at the end of the month, give you even more information. So please sign up for that. We also are going to do something soon on understanding pre-employment assessments. What are they? Who's using them? Why? And how does that affect you in your job search? What you need to know. We also have a program next week on a different topic, charitable giving. So even if you're job hunting, you may want to be able to give something. It's not just money. There are many things you can give to help organizations that need it. And how do you decide what to give, to whom to give, how much to give? And we're going to have a nice session on that next time in preparation for Giving Tuesday. Please sign up for the Encore Boston Network newsletter. Please join us. Everything is free. You'll let us know you'll find out what's coming up way before everyone else. We want to thank you again so much for joining us, and I wish you all continued success in your job searches.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here, and good luck to everybody in their search. let me know, reach out and let me know if I can be of help, certainly for jobs through Flex Professionals or in other resource ways. I was negligent in mentioning that the QR code on the screen will get an email with a bunch of different resources, including a link to our basic LinkedIn webinar, as well as the slides too. So Miriam's going to send that out as well tomorrow. Thank you, Miriam. And thank you, Doug and Kendra.
Thank you again, Leanne.
Okay.